Alright guys, welcome to another video. So Belisarius Prime just dropped and this is just like a initial reaction video. I haven't been able to give too much thought about it, but I at least wanted to put out some initial thoughts. Lilith already said that he's gonna come out in May, so we probably have I had to guess a month, give or take, right? First, it's very interesting. This commander is a mobility tree commander, kind of. I think the original Belisarius was also a mobility tree. So for most of us, we have had to deal with a mobility tree. It's actually with Cao, right? You optimize them for speed and arc of Osiris. I think this commander will be a monster in arc, but for most people, we don't care about that. It's more how he does in the open field. So let's actually take a look. But initial thoughts with the skill, right? If you have a mobility tree, you just get a lot of march speed in there. You probably actually have to go to the top of the cav wheel, which is not ideal for a primary commander. So he probably will do better as a secondary, but we'll take a look at some of his skills. I'm not going to read all of it just because I think everyone who's watches this video probably already at least have read it, and it is on the screen. The damage factor is okay. It's pretty good, right? It's not quite Hua, or even I think Justinian's 2500, but it's better than the 2300, the generation before that with like Nevsky, Boudica, and then like they're doing the 2300. Biggest gripe, I think it's pretty obvious for most people that it's not AoE. So now essentially in the meta, you can have 3 single target commanders with Nevsky, Hua, and Belisarius. I do like the direction that this is going. I don't want to say I predicted it, but I did kind of call. I think this could be a direction that Lilith goes. So I think they want to make archers squishier, but big AOE, and then you get double AOE, right, up to 5 targets with archers. And that's so far archers, other than leadership commanders, are the only ones with the circular AOE. And then with infantry, definitely the slowest troop type, but they counter skill damage and skill damage reduction, right? They don't counter skill damage. They counter skill damage reduction, where they have smite damage. So all these things where you take less skill damage, smite damage bypasses that. I think smite damage is just better than skill damage. We already went over that in a past video. And then with cavalry, their strength should be that march speed. So Belisarius is obviously going to be the fastest commander in the game, just 20% flat march speed, but then also we'll go over the second skill. You could see why he's so fast. Okay, now the rage reduction and the rage requirement increase is very interesting. This commander I don't think will necessarily do that well in a duel, just because a lot of his utility comes from what depends on the target being surrounded. But essentially, the way rage works, I think this will work kind of like a silent trial, but obviously a lot better, the rage reduction. So rage cap is up to 220. If you go over that, it's still 220. And then from there, you actually subtract the rage increase, right? So it's not necessarily a silence or a disarm, but it essentially delays when they can launch their active skill, which is very good. I don't think there's another commander that can do that. I'm pretty sure, but this is again kind of off the cuff. Okay, and then 5 seconds where it just takes them longer to launch the active skill. It's very good. This is extremely good in a rally or garrison context if you're storming a rally or garrison. But again, most people care about open field, and I would say it loses some value just because it's right. It's just not one target. There's all these marches on the field. But for a rally garrison, you're a big whale. I think this is like a must-have, right? Just because if you don't have this when you're storming, you're losing a lot of effectiveness compared to someone who does. Second skill, right? 30% attack is pretty basic. Very, very fast commander. And then when you exit combat, it's even faster. So even if you disconnect from the target, you get to reconnect. If you do disconnect and you reconnect, you exit combat. A commander like Hua gets a lot of his value from that first 15 seconds when you re-enter combat. So off the top of my head, it's almost like this commander, honestly, the best natural pairing, even though they're both single target damage commanders, will probably actually be as a secondary to Hua, right? And also, if you do have a Mora's Web, I think it's automatic. It will go on this March, just because Mora's Web, you want it to be on your fastest march so you can have the best chance of applying it onto the target. Commander is definitely tankier than XY, Joan, and William, right, with a 25% defense, but not as tanky as Hua, who I think has the 35% defense, and the Nevsky is just a whole different level of tankiness, right? And then while the commander troop is on the map, right? So I do think this is a Wheel of Fortune commander because there's a couple of skills that requires the commander to be on the map. So definitely, I think we know the Cav MGE this cycle is supposed to be Garrison, so obviously this isn't Garrison. So this is Wheel. But what's really cool is there is an instant proc. I'm a big fan of instant proc, so whenever something has a 10% chance of triggering, I think in 10 turns you have a 65% chance of triggering it. Damage factor is kind of low for this. Like William, if the target is surrounded, you could get up to I think like 1500. This is only 500 damage factor. Usually on the screen, white damage you see is about 400 damage factor. So this is only slightly more, but still instant proc. It is an instant proc. It's cool. And then the force skill, 10% skill damage reduction isn't that much. Like Hua is double that or more. Is it 20 or 25%? Right? There's a lot of commanders that have a lot more than 10%. So 10% is actually on the low side. And 30% is actually really solid. I do wish it was just a flat 30%, right? This, for the most part, you'll have it, but only when the target troop has less than 80%, then it kicks in, right? So you can imagine, like, for a garrison, this will be a lot more applicable, right? Because for the most part, once the initial part wears off, the garrison or rally is much more likely to be at less than 80%. When you are swarming it, and then the expertise is the best skill out of all the skills. All the other flat, like you take more damage from the other commanders, it's usually triggered off of the active skill. This is just if you are surrounding the troop, they're always going to be taking 12% more damage, and that's very, very, very powerful. Okay, so and it also stacks with other active skills. So just based on this expertise alone, like for whales, it's a must-have. I think for a lot of people, their question would be, hey, I don't have Hua yet. Do I invest in this commander or Hua? I think for benefiting the overall, like your 5, 6, 7 marches, or however many marches you are, or for the ball, this commander will provide more utility. He's just doing a couple things that are really cool. But when it comes from dueling or getting like big reports where you're trading very, very well, I don't think he'll do as well. So the question for you is, like, would you rather have a more quote unquote selfish march where you trade better and do more damage and get more kills? Or would you rather have a march, a commander that's a little bit more utility based, where he's providing a lot of benefits that maybe doesn't show up, or that's harder to measure? I think that's the question. I have said multiple times I skipped Hua. I'm not a Hua hater. I think he's really good. I didn't think he was that good. This commander is obviously not LC. If you give me the choice, just first reaction, I think I would actually take this commander over Hua. But I don't think it's that far apart. I think they're really close. And funny enough, if I had to say like best pairings, I think he probably actually pairs best with Hua as a secondary, because like when you exit combat, boom, you get Hua's second or third skill, where it's just like less rage cost, more skill damage, right? We're after a kill when the thing resets, but also you get a bonus march speed, so you could catch back up to someone that's trying to get away. I think also Nevsky as a secondary at a Nevsky will work pretty well. Right, you still get to utilize the skill tree from Nevsky. This march would be very, very tanky, and it will do really well in duels, and also it has that effect where, if you want to swarm rally garrisons, I think it'll do really well. And then for me, my first thought, based on my personal marches, right, because right now my 2 marches, I'm running Nevsky Joan and actually Mina William. I wanted to use a new commander to replace Mina. If I run Mina William, it will just be a support march that trades okay, right? So Mina has a lot of utility. This commander has a lot of utility it's bringing on the field. You pair those two together, it's a very good utility march. it's cool because they both have an instant proc. William has an instant proc. This commander has a smaller instant proc. So the only downside for that is one has a mobility tree, Belisarius, and then William has an attack tree. So can you make that work? Probably, but I have to think about it a little bit more, right? Or another way to think about it is you just skip this altogether, right? You still run Ho Joan, Ho William, and then Nevsky Joan. It's still pretty good. Like, this commander is not clearly a cut above. I think if there is more utility, if you haven't invested in it, I would choose him over Ho. But if you already have those 4 from the before, would you bump one out to replace Belisarius in there? Honestly, first reaction is probably not, unless you're a big whale. But then, like, if you're doing a lot of swarming, I think the value is there. So overall, what do I think about this commander? I think it's solid. I actually like the direction this went. I think if you had a commander that come out that was stronger than Lu Che, the game would actually become very unbalanced, and it would just be heavily favored Cavs again. So this actually still keeps it interesting, and there's a lot of different pairings this could go with. This guy would be a monster in Arc of Osiris, right? Like, I think if you're playing at a high level, you're doing like Osiris League or something, you have to have him. But for the on the field, I would choose him over Ho if I haven't invested in either yet. If you have Ho and you want to skip him, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think it's gonna flop, just because, like, when you have utility like this, there's gonna be use for it. I think it'll actually really help a ball in ways where it's not easily measurable. I think his reports will be okay, no matter who you pair him with, either William, Ho, or Nevsky, but it's not going to be the best. And this is not a dueling march, right? Just because a lot of his value comes from the target being surrounded. But that's my initial thoughts. You guys have anything, obviously, please leave it in the comment section. And if you haven't yet and you watch all the way to the end, really would appreciate it if you guys like and subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys next time.